whenever new writers are coming on or new departments cycle, we give them the opportunity to get together, get a guiding document, and the standards and the discipline to think about the big outcomes that the bigger understanding and the impression. So they do that in the K-12 department. This was a little unique because their standards actually were blended. When the standards come out national, actually covers and Suzanne Gaskell, who's here with us this evening, was also part of that bill. So several days together was an opportunity for us to see where we wanted to go with curriculum. And the first one on Untitled was art. So there's art first and there's music. So in 2019, the group started to also examine in the art department, which department has 7 professionals for 12, how they wanted to reimagine art offerings. And they took input from focus groups, from students, and student surveys to see what was working well for kids. 2019, the group has time over the summer. They start with the summer. We go into the school year. Typically, what we do is we work in teams during the summer, during vacation, and then we provide sub-coverage throughout the school year. So 2019, 2020, we are underway. We get a significant amount of our elementary work. And the pandemic hits, which causes everybody to go remote. There's no sitting around the table. There's no collaboration personally. For the remainder of that year, and of course, it stops on our work. Pretty much 2020 to 2021, we have staff challenges in the department with coaching, and Bill gets allocated to teaching background school instead of leading curriculum work, but still is wearing 2 hats, bravely forging ahead, and also working with staff. Forums. So, this brings us to today and a great celebration of the second half of our adoptions. But I just wanted to conclude that for revolutionary. So, Bill is here, and Bill, how many years have you been in?
This is my
nice year. And Suzanne is here in her 29th year, and has just announced her retirement for this year. So, we're pleased that she had her contribution.
And I will say, I feel very fortunate to have her in this district. And my kids also went through the Madison Public School system, and it's been a joy. So I'm looking forward to being a grandmother next year, babysitting a new and first grandson, which was born in December. Thank you. But yeah, I'll miss this.
part of
Great. Part of loving being a passion. Yeah.
I'll hand it over.
Okay, I don't know if we're able to. Yeah, you can get this. I know, and I know that Carol spoke to some of it in the starter, but really, like when I started this, it was that goal of taking on all the stakeholders that had. And I was really thinking about students, teachers, and then really the administration, part of trying to figure out what's the, how to go about rewriting. And I really think that it was really important to take the students in mind. I've always been a person of being students first, and what's good for students, we can figure out the rest of it. But it was me wearing that hat of I knew that we had to conform to a certain way of writing the curriculum, it had to look like everything else's, so from the upper administration. But I also wanted to make sure that the teachers were going to be comfortable with the change and that they were going to be doing that change. So
And I apologize that I'm actually communicating with a fellow board.
Okay, so one of the things that, as we went through this, we did take a lot of the student feedback and did some surveys, kind of figure out what students were interested in. We had some ideas for courses. I wanted to figure out what we could then offer. So we reimagined, we looked at some of the courses that we had. Really in my field with photography, I really felt that we could take that as one of the examples to kind of pare it down and learn it a little bit. Pulled everybody back to this, where it seems to always, it's a nice flow, and when you get around back to the top, you just continue on with it. So then the other thing that we really wanted to make sure to do was to create rubrics that were going to work. Everybody had a different type of rubric. It was really kind of hard to figure out from course to course what we were using, and we wanted to bring up those 21st century capacities. So we started working on, hard to see this, but I had it created where it was, you had the standard in the center. And what we have is we have in this course in particular, this was a photography course, and the top part was skills. So in this particular one, it was the main subject. You emphasize the main subject through the use of light, composition, and depth of field. And if a student did not reach that standard, in the left-hand column, it was giving them formative feedback for what they needed to do to get them here, and then even further to get them to if they've gone beyond the standard. So we have the skills, and then we have the two 21st century capacities where we had design and self-awareness. In the design part of it, we were dealing with the sketchbook, because you were documenting the process that you used into, to where you got with your artwork. We were trying to get away from it always just being the product, and we were really kind of looking at it as the process and creating artists. And then they also, the self-awareness, they went back and they were being self-reflective on it as well. So no matter what, you always had specific information that the student could use to get to the next level. So we have these 9 courses. We had the other courses that we had previously adopted. And then I chose just to show you a little bit about our drawing class, and the drawing ends up being kind of one of our foundational courses. It used to be that you needed this course in order to go on to everything else. So in this course, we start off with this a pre-assessment, in where we have the students kind of just draw. We ask them to do a bunch of different drawings, one of them being the portrait, and they're just going kind of by memory of what they've done before. And we take a day or two for them to do these drawings. We then, throughout these units, there are 4 different units, but we're taking them through, and certainly in the first couple where we take them through sizing, how you actually, measuring and sighting of objects, so you can get them, I guess, so you use your page properly, doing this tiny little drawing on a giant paper. Really, I did this backwards, but we start with this upside down map. And so we worked off of Betty Edwards. It's the drawing from the right side of the brain. And one of the things is trying to get yourself not to see trying to draw exactly what you're looking at. And when you look at a person, you have these preconceived notions. So you use this, and by turning it upside down and doing it where you're just looking at lines and shapes, it's easier to get away from that, what's preventing us from drawing it properly. Usually we fold this into sections, turn it upside down. Then as we move on, we continue on with the PBA, and this one ends up being this bentwood chair. And this absolutely, there's a chair in front of them that we have lit, and they use their pencils and they cite and they try to figure out how to use their page. It's a little bit easier with the shading because I think it's a much more simple shading that you can do in this. And then as they move on, we go into doing a little bit of, this is a little bit more with the still life drawing. We get a little bit into doing some other materials, some charcoal, using some different highlights and shadows in here as well. The next one, and this is actually we do the PBA, which is a still life that they have set up in front of them instead of just the simple objects.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
So could you explain to folks what PBA is?
I'm sorry, it's a performance-based assessment. My apologies. So it's at the end of a unit, we want them to show us what they have learned in the unit by demonstrating it in their drawings. A lot of times in art, though, it's a little bit different because it's not like we have them do steps 1, 2, and 3, and then they do the final PBA. They spend some days. We really sometimes they're working on 1, 2, and 3, and they get a small part of that. That's already a small part of their drawing, and then they add more to it. So the PBA sometimes is a continuous thing for us in the arts. So then we also added in here we wanted to get a little bit of a color theory in there, something that as they're moving along through art, they really, we really want them to know about color, the color wheel, how to use it. And we tend to find that it's been, as Suzanne is pointing out, these holograph prints that the students do are always just visually amazing. It gets the students, if you're talking about getting them inspired, when they create these, any student, really can come up with a good product from it. And so the colors and everything are amazing. So we do like the final part of this, and we do want the students to kind of, even though it's kind of a step out from the rest of the drawing that we're doing, it is important for as they're moving on throughout art. And then the final PBA, as we do it, this would be as the kids continue on and different levels of what the students are capable of doing, but these are some of the finished ones that our students have done. So you can see some people are really good in certain areas and other, but it's a process, and they work through it. And the final exam is them coming in and working on it and finishing up so they can see that final piece and have their critique. So then I showed you a little bit more. So as they go on, they can do this. This is what they'll do in the drawing studio is what we have for the next level of drawing, where they start using, and I forget the process. This is like a salting.
Yeah, this is a paper that we put India ink wash down and then throw salt on it, so you get like a really interesting kind of pockmarked texture.
So they use it, and they're still building off of the portrait that they had done before, but they can get a little bit more creative with that and see how that works. We get them into, and this is a young woman now who, and I think she's a sophomore.
Yeah, I think so.
I think she's pretty young, who clearly has had a lot of art before, but you can see, this is just taking it to that next level, and she's really kind of ready for that painting course, which is one of our top courses. this being what they then go into doing the painting, where Robert takes them through the whole underpainting and what they have to do, and they actually the next one is amazing. So you can see, and this is I believe is he a senior or junior?
Junior.
Junior. So pretty incredible. So one of the big things as we were doing it too is we really wanted to make sure that we were we had the courses that we had when the older courses, and then what we reimagined on the right hand side. And some of it, so you can see when we did like our commercial photography, we would have 2 digital photos, a 1 and a 2. Sorry, we would have a darkroom photo, a 1 and a 2. And it was really, when we got to that second course, we would have a big drop off in numbers. It could sometimes be good, but when you have 3 kids in a class, it's really hard to do everything. So we did, for those courses, we reimagined them. We created a photography, kind of like a survey course, darkroom, 2 digital, and then a commercial photography. So we tried to pare it down, trying to eliminate as many of those, those prerequisites that are preventing people from taking. So looking towards the future, where do I see this? One of the things that I had done in the commercial photography was we go through and we do a portraiture, and then we do some food photography. And I got a local food truck to come in, and we did all the stuff that they had learned with taking the photos, and we got the food and they brought it inside, they shot it, and of course ate it. And then we took all those photos during our final exam and they put them together for an advertising campaign for him. And then, we gave it all over to him. So hopefully he uses it. But I'd like to kind of continue looking for these types of things. I mean, it's perfect for any of the businesses in town that we can go to. I think I was a little bit lofty in my when I first came to Madison, and I wanted to get artwork down in those shops, and I met with everybody, and it turned out to be so difficult and impossible to do that I think this is a much more a slow move into the community. I did bring this up. So this was a piece of work by Claire Hurley, who graduated last year. And I brought this up because it's for the social emotional learning, and I think that it's a really important thing. Obviously we always say that the arts are a place where somebody can just kind of be themselves, and they can be creative and kind of not have to worry. But in some cases, obviously we have to teach them this. We have to show them what to do. There are some skills that are involved, but I wanted to show this to you because she was in particular. Let's see if this will actually let me do it. This was a back there we go. Get 2.
It's coming.
So far, before the trumpet starts.
We have volume.
Are you board members familiar with the CAST, the Heart of the Art Awards?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we had a student last year, Claire
From
Hurley.
Daniel Van High School in Madison. Claire has gone from a young art student, once hesitant to share her work, to a proud high school senior who set up an art studio in her garage during remote learning in the pandemic. As you'll see, Claire is one very resilient student artist.
You just put on music and you sit down and do something you love, and it just keeps coming out of your brain and you can't stop it. I've learned a lot from her. It's hard to imagine myself without art. It feels awesome.
She has got just a great sense of humor. It's like a runner's high. I don't have those because I don't run, but it's a really good example of how to live and how to live positively. Claire is headed to Alfred University of New York to study art and design. How did she start with art? The credit there goes to a beloved family member.
My grandmother was a really big influence with me as a child. She used to like take me to museums all the time, and she would draw with me like every day. And I think that kind of just ingrained into my brain how to be creative and how to really step out of my comfort zone to like make something,
Beautiful. Beauty and art beauty in life, it was all harder to find during the pandemic. And for Claire, COVID hit home. Her grandparents, Ron and Carolyn Duff, both passed away from COVID complications.
My grandfather had actually been sick for quite a while. I kind of had been mentally preparing myself a little bit for his passing, but with my grandmother, it was more of a surprise, and she just kind of got COVID and passed away near Christmas, which was pretty hard to deal with at a time like that.
Claire uses her art to express herself. She uses it as a form of therapy. Claire was the perfect embodiment, I thought, that captured the spirit of this award.
I made this piece, it's not done yet. The vision was to kind of piece together memories that I've had with my grandparents. All of these colors remind me of them, and the stitching even like reminds me of like the boat that we used to sail on with them. The water reminds me of sea glass I used to pick up with my grandma. Towards the end, it starts to break apart and the needle is still attached to the bottom. And that was kind of to show loss. Art has gotten me through so much. And if I didn't have it, I don't know what I would do.
Claire was processing a lot of grief this year. It's been difficult with COVID to get through the school year, and she used her art in such a positive way to stay buoyant.
I honestly wasn't very happy with anything that I was making before COVID happened because I feel like I didn't have reason to make something. I needed art to get through what I got through. In that, I really progressed in like my mediums, and I explored things that I never would have before. I feel like I honestly really came out better because of it. I'm just like a completely different person now. And if I met who I was before COVID, I don't know if I would recognize it.
My name is Stephanie Steeple Williams, and I'm
Yeah, so I mean, it was, I only had Claire for, I think I had it for one class where she came in for a photography course, and she was not, she just liked to be in there. She was a funny kid. And then I think she just liked being in there. So she took another course with me. And then of course, COVID happened, and, I didn't see her for the last 2 years as she was doing it. But, clearly, it's just one of these things, and that she was able to find this. And I have a conversation with one of her friends who's now a senior as well. And she said the same thing, where she said, I didn't think I was smart. She said, I never thought that I was smart. Kids get awards for being smart. And I never saw it. And then they just hadn't found what it was that they could do. And I think through bringing that to them and giving them, showing them, and sometimes it is, you do have to show them the skills, but that kind of got them interested into it. This happens to be some work by Eric Gilner, who graduated also, another student who, I don't think he ever took a darkroom photography course, but he spent more time in the darkroom than a lot of my students. He would come in his off time and just, in between hockey and kind of do it. It's just like, this is where we want to be able to, we want the students to be able to progress to this. So we do need to kind of offer some of those upper level courses, some of the more, but we also want to make sure that it's available for everybody. There was also, and this is something that, and Suzanne has been working on it, it's not totally done yet, but one of the courses that we have, it was going from printmaking, and we have it now as Prints Your Piece. But I think one of the important things about these printmaking courses is that we're trying to bring in the humanities. We're trying to show that art as a change, right? So art as a tool to be for change. And I think that these were perfect. Suzanne worked with an artist who, I think with your AP class from Kosovo. It was really interesting. They were able to get a totally different perspective on what it's like to be, even a person in a world, and that's not like ours right now. So I think that these, this course in particular has that potential to be all of these things, which, obviously, working on the profile of graduate, these I think are are really important. And I think that we need, even this type of stuff, I think revisiting it, I think if we can start putting some of this type of depth into some of our other courses as well, I think that would be important, that would be important. So. That's it.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions from the members of the board?
I'm wondering, this all looks wonderful, and I love the fact that you're rethinking how to deliver the program in a way that the students find it more attractive to them. And even though that means, shrinking a little bit, the number of courses, sometimes that's a better thing than just having a bunch of courses that nobody's attending, or that are, you only have a certain amount of time in your high school career to middle school, whatever, to complete courses. So having more of a survey course might be more attractive to a lot of students than just a hard discipline that's a prerequisite to get to another hard discipline. So I really like that. I wonder, I know that there are many students who have gone on from hand to conservatory level or whatever type of programs for art. And I'm wondering, is there a way that you identify students who show that either desire or interest and capacity, and is there a way, are there either kind of independent study or some kind of higher level in their preferred disciplines to allow them to really achieve like a strong portfolio? Or
Right now, no. I mean, because as we've gotten smaller, and then we just don't have as many classes.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, they don't have the time. Certainly not in school. So they're looking for things outside of school. But I think this is also why, in my head, when we look at the humanities and things like this, it's trying to get other courses that also fit, and then I think they do fit in with humanities. The art standards are pretty in depth, and I think they did a very good job. And in some cases, they even overlap with a lot of some of the other standards from like English and things like that. But I think that if we can designate some courses in things like that, in the humanities, in STEAM or STEM, that then opens them up to being able to take more courses. Right now, if you only have to take the 2 art courses, we get some kids that take, or half of them will take music and half of them will take art. So yeah, it does, that's something that as the board looks at it over time, that, you can see, I guess you have to figure out what, will it aid us? Will it hurt us? How does it, affect the overall school?
Do you mind if I add
No,
on
please,
something like that? When you talked about, is there a way of identifying students? And I think in every art teacher's experience, from whether it's elementary through junior high and high school, you do have some students, and I'm sure this is in every discipline, that you feel, oh, wow, this kid is really inclined towards this way. We do have AP drawing program, and so the kids that get in the high school level who say in a drawing 1 or a drawing 2 class, we highly encourage those kids. Wow, if you would like to take this to the next level, you ought to consider painting, and if you do painting, we can get you into an AP. Our AP course currently runs 2 trimesters. I would love to see it run 3, but ideally that runs first and second trimester. The beauty of that is first trimester, for those students who get to that level who do want to apply to an art school, we do help with portfolio development. In the past, we've also partnered with Lyme Art Academy. That's been seriously disrupted, A, by COVID, and B, they were just, they originally had an affiliation with UNH that was dissolved, and it's now under new direction. But I'm hoping that that partnership will resume again, because previously they had allowed our students to attend life drawing sessions on Saturdays, and they allowed the high school kids to come for free. And that was wonderful. There wasn't instruction, but if you had kids that, 2 or 3 kids that would go up on a Saturday together, the level of their drawing from having those experiences, it was great. So, so we do try to accommodate,
Yeah.
definitely, those levels. And we have had kids that have gone on and done some really great stuff in the arts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always, it's funny because it's usually those kids, like you can see the ones that readily want to do more in the arts, and then the kids that slowly start to pick up in your class, and then usually it's those that you're not really, they're not you're not getting anything from them, that you see it, but you continue on with it, and then you start to pick up that either later on they come talking to, or you see that they take another course or they do something that you can see it did actually have an effect on them.
As the independent study concept evolves and builds, Daniel Hand, are you seeing students taking an art track and utilizing that independent study at this point in time, or not so much?
I mean, I haven't seen it, but I mean,
I think it's a possibility.
it is a possibility, but I just haven't seen it because, I mean, it hasn't been, I guess, on a big macro level for us to see all the stuff that people have done. I know next year there's a bunch more courses running, so.
There was a student last year who did an independent study who developed a local art studio to sell art that was generated by the high school. So that was a student, and I think it still exists downtown. I just saw.
I saw that. I also saw, a student that developed a film. So,
Right. That was another one. So there were 2 students, and that's when it wasn't a graduation requirement. So if that's representative, it's pretty encouraging.
I raise it because I see, some potential there.
Yeah, definitely.
So some of the classes like photography are all obviously more equipment intensive. How does that work? Do we provide equipment? Do students provide their own equipment?
It's been a big change. So with the digital photo or even darkroom photo, we have all the film cameras for them. They're very hard to come by nowadays. The digital cameras, I mean, we do have some high-end, part of doing this as well is trying to show them that I take a lot of photos with my iPhone.
Yeah.
But if I want to be able to have more control over my creativity, and that's when we get into using Photoshop and some other things. So using an SLR camera where you can, with all different lenses, I think, completely changes the look of something. So I have students taking photos with their phones to having a $2,000 camera that does excellent, huge reprints. But I just try to show them it's just trying to show them what is out there.
No, that's great. I just remember when I was in school not taking photography because we had to provide our own camera, and I didn't want to ask my dad to buy me a camera. So I just wanted to make sure that kids had the opportunity to try things.
Yeah, and a lot of when I started doing this as well with the photography, I wanted to make sure that everybody was doing it. So we would always have some problems where if a student, with all the work that they have and sports and everything else, if you're asking them to go out and take photos, and I think it's easy, but then again, I've been doing it for a long time. So they go out, and that's a hard, asking them to take 20 photos could be a lot. So I tried to make it so that they could do all of the work in school. Yet they have the opportunity to take photos outside of school. So that way everybody can be successful.
Right.
They start to see that the quality of the photos probably comes out a little bit better when they go home to do it, because you just have to be interested in the place. And we do it, we walk around the school and we take photos, and then I ask them to go back and take more photos, and they don't know what to do. I'm like, yeah, you've already seen this. How many days? So go home, go out somewhere, find the photos.
Okay, great.
One of the commitments that we make to a new discipline coming on is that there's a certain amount of my budget that I allocate to get them the equipment they need as they reimagine their courses. So, Bill in the department gives me their shopping list, and I look at some things and go, ooh, no. And other things I say, yes, we can do that. So that happens right in the beginning as they're reimagining courses. So they know that they'll have the materials to be able to make the coursework.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I have a few comments.
Sure.
So the idea of incorporating art into the different humanities, I think, is brilliant. I think it is definitely a way to spark interest in art just in general, even just appreciating art or understanding a culture based on their art, quilts and how they tell a story. And you know, I just think of like my own heritage, the Irish heritage, where Aran sweaters are there's meaning to each one, and it's about the rose that the farmer, you know, it's just so much that kids can learn. And then it opens doors to just thinking outside of what you know. And I think that that's so important for our kids. So I would love to see that whole idea of dipping in, where you maybe even share a course with a history teacher and you kind of teach that, or an English teacher, and kind of, I don't know, I just, my brain is going.
Yes. I totally
Because
understand.
creativity is contagious and you've passed it on.
Interdisciplinary study.
Yep, yeah, I think it's great. I think that would be wonderful. I also think about that cycle that you showed in the beginning, and how that everything that you showed us and everything that you talked about shows that that's a core belief for your department and for you. And I think that whole idea of feedback, but kids learning how to give themselves feedback, that to me, you really taught the kids that. When I look at Claire's story and how, and Eric, how you talked about Eric and going in on his own, and, you know, learning how to do that for yourself. You know, it might have taken a pandemic, but they were able to take that and draw from it when they were on their own. And that shows how inspiring you and you both and your department and all the work that you put in really grew these artists and really inspired kids. And I could hear it in your voice and I could see it on your faces, how much you love your students. And I think that is, it's not lost on me at all. When there was disappointment in your voice when you said, and then I didn't get to see them for 2 years.
No, that is, yeah.
And it's clear as a bell to me that you could still summon that painful time that you weren't with your kids. And I think that that's important for people to know, that and as you watched Claire on, you know, the pride that you had for her, I know that that's not just unique to just Claire and to Eric or to the stories that you gave today, that what you do as a teacher, you might not see, or it might not ever end up that way, but it's not lost on me, and I don't think it's lost on a lot of people. And I think it's important that we know, you know, teachers are getting bashed a lot lately, and education is a place that it's fun to bring a hammer to the party. And I think that it's important for people to know that teachers give their heart and soul, and it is clear as a bell that you both did that, and that your department cares a lot about our students, and I thank you.
I appreciate that.
So much.
I have to say, it's one of those things that, and I have the conversation with Gail as we were doing this, because it's one of those things that as everybody is teaching their course and they're doing a project, a lot of times you're in clay, you are creating something right there with them. And I think about Robert, who was doing these bonsai trees, and he was making these pots for them and doing the bonsai trees. And the thing is that, so sometimes you start to think, well, if everybody's doing the bonsai trees, then it's just becomes this cookie cutter type of thing. And I didn't think that, because I feel like, you know, you have a range of students, and some students really need to have their hand held in something that they're not that comfortable with. And so seeing somebody doing that and being able to follow along with them is actually very important to them, where somebody else might be able to take it and say, I get that, but I'm more interested in, you know, my Irish heritage or something else, and go in that direction with it, and then they branch off in that direction. But I kind of feel like you do want, you know, I think about it like with those skills that we want to teach them, so if somebody can just kind of follow along, and other people too, they'll all eventually get there if they continue.
But allowing them to have that capacity to, you know, not just be open about it and say, like, you know, like we always say in the elementary school, follow the child. That's your very best thing that you can do as a teacher, is to follow your students and not try to lead them somewhere. And it sounds to me like that's exactly what you both do and what this department does, and it's fantastic.
If I can editorialize for a few minutes.
Yes, please.
You know, and I truly appreciate Kathy's comments in particular. But, you know, one of the seminal activities of the curriculum committee is that educators who know their subject areas in depth create curriculum and do a lot of work on that, and then present it to everyday citizens that serve on the board to get their approval and to move it forward to endorse it, which raises, you know, a significant question. How does that happen that your average citizens are now making those judgments? And I want to speak to that for a minute, because it's a process. One, all the members of this committee got the curriculum in advance and read through it. And it's pages and pages, and then it's great detail. And we look at it and we try and formulate questions and we try and think about, but we do that against what template and what context. And you know, and this is the important point in terms of how this process works. We are the representatives of the community and representatives of the kids as we do that. And we look at it against what are the documents, i.e. your mission statement, our profile of the graduate, the theory of action that says, these are the kinds of outcomes we want for our students. And we look at the curriculum and go, are we feeling that's what it's responding to? And it's very much in line with what Kathy is saying. I would add another layer to that, you know, and it's in line with what you presented, which is, you know, as a department, you begin, you know, and use the term reimagining multiple times. This is a time that requires reimagining what we're doing. And, you know, I'm the oldest guy in the room. You know, it used to be, there's the core curriculum, and then there's art. And art is great, and art is for art kids. You know, those times have changed. The currency of the future, creativity, creative thinking, problem solving, entrepreneurship are the pillars of what the future looks like. So the nature of art in relation to that, and I'm editorializing, is, you know, really important. I would say, I read through the curriculum in depth and closely. And I walked away from it and I said, it's all skills, 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 with this undercurrent statements around profile of the graduate. And I walked away from that going, I have some sense of art teachers. I do not think this reflects where it's coming from. And I have to tell you, I fully appreciate how important it is to teach skills in art. So this isn't an either or. I'm not saying too much skills ought to be something else. I wouldn't take any of the skills out, but I don't think the curriculum as it's written speaks qualitatively to the role of art in the young people's lives in these schools that I know you believe in. How do I know? Because it's what you've talked about all night. So I would encourage you to go back and look at that curriculum, particularly in terms of the goal statements, and have the courage to say what you really believe about what art does for people, you know, in line with what Kathy's saying, because that is the strength of it. And I believe, you know, I will certainly make the case, and I have faith in my colleagues, that you have a board that is prepared to support that, because that's what parents want for their kids, and that's what the community wants for their kids. So that's me editorial.
I appreciate it. As an artist, I'm always able to reflect on everything that we've done, and I think since we had, you know, heard about it, I've been looking at it nonstop since then. But and I'll be thinking about it all night too. But that's okay. But I will. I mean, and we'll go back to it and we'll revisit it. Absolutely, I appreciate it.
I think one thing I've learned about the department as a whole is that they accept feedback and reflection, I think, as much as they promote it with their students. And continual improvement and refinement is what we do every day. So I think we accept your challenge.
So I agree with everything you said wholeheartedly, absolutely. And I think the reason much of it appears as though it's written from a skill base, we're hopeful that when you hire new teachers or existing teachers, you have people who have artistic experience. I think with the curriculum, to ensure that there was the sequential learning we needed to get kids to have the foundational skills that would later allow them to have the confidence to create. We felt that, okay, we need to have these skills. There were several places where we said, this project could be real, this color theory, for example, although we recommended doing color graph prints, another art teacher who maybe is expert in painting or in caustic or whatever, might realize those same standards with a very different, and so we, probably did go more skills-based, just knowing what we wanted kids to have foundationally, with the hopes that each individual teacher could have flexibility to substitute, different materials, draw on different historical resources. If there's a way if we can go back and do that, I mean, I'd like to ensure that there's still that skill development, which is really important.
It has to
But
be there.
Do you think, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but,
Yeah.
And I believe those skills have to be there.
Mhm.
But in the presentation, when you were talking about those skills, one of the things you said is, part of the outcome we're looking for is have them to see things differently, see the world differently, see, to turn it upside down and right. Well, that's changing perspective. That's changing a vision. Those are worthwhile goals and those are worthwhile outcomes that deserve to be stated and embraced from my perspective.
And those are skills too, not just how to draw or how to perspective, find perspective, but how to view things.
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree is a worthwhile skill set in the 21st century for us to be graduating students with out of our arts programs.
Absolutely.
Those residual rewards that we could put them right in there. It's important to like you said, state it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we feel it.
No, it's just like being written there. I got it.
Yeah, I don't know how you write the essence of what, but you can, I'm sure
It was what we were grappling with,
That's
well,
it.
for the 6 months that I was.
I don't ever want to, and I don't think we'll be there, but I don't ever want to see the day, that Madison has a budget crunch and we haven't evolved the thinking of this community and they go, well, and then we go back to what was done, years ago. And they'll be able to go, well, we can cut drawing because you can go through life without knowing how to draw. I mean, it's the old story. And if that's all we put forward, then that's how it will be seen.
Bill, you mentioned that new courses, the way it was aligned, that you saw more student enrollment for next year. You're looking at that? Did I?
Some.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I heard what I wanted to hear.
No, I mean, yeah, some. It really depends. I think this year there's been a change because of the humanities. I think numbers have changed a little bit.
Okay.
It really depends. We just got the numbers in, and I'll sit down with Brian and we'll figure it out. But it wasn't as robust, I guess, as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
But I think it was also just because of the decline, a little bit of the declining enrollment. But I think the humanity change was
We did get 10 signups for the printmaking.
yeah.
So the printmaking, we're finishing up with that curriculum, but the goal is that will have a cross endorsement with the humanities, with the purpose that it is about creating work that has some kind of a social advocacy piece to it, and also a component of, as you mentioned, taking alternate perspectives, looking at different cultures. The first unit of that course, the content is heavily reliant on UNESCO's sustainable goals and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, for example, and then students are acquainted with that, World Heritage, and so we're bringing those pieces into that particular course, which we don't, currently have in some of our other courses, so.
The school counseling has a good grasp of
Yeah.
the changes in terms of,
Yeah.
when they start to see that students have a hole in their schedule.
Yes, that's a
encourage
good
them to take, one of the
Yeah.
courses, that would be great.
How would that work in terms of credits? I mean, right now there is a one credit requirement for art, so if it's a combination and those become humanity, are those cross credit courses, or is that an additional art?
There's a humanities bucket of credits that that would then qualify for under a humanities credit. So now I could take an art course and that would count for a humanities.
Well, it'd be just this one particular
That one
course that we
yeah.
have a cross endorsement with humanities.
So the criteria for a course being called humanities or being badged that way is to have standards in multiple disciplines. So when the courses were reimagined for art back in 2019, that badging was not developed yet. It was a new graduation requirement. So I think it was kind of late breaking news to the design team. That being said, Suzanne was very passionate about the humanities aspect in printmaking. And we are, thinking all the time about how we badge those endorsements. But yeah, it was definitely, I think, another evolving curveball amid everything else in the years.
Well, we went through the 21st century capacities to the portrait of graduate to now the profile of graduate. So we did have to make multiple changes as we were doing it.
So the capacities themselves changed also amid that.
During the process?
Yeah.
And I can see
It was
why
kind
that
of
would
the
make
perfect
it,
storm.
well, I can see why that would make it more of a mechanical pursuit. We need to address X, Y, and Z. Here's how we address X, Y, and Z. But again, put your hearts back into it and think of what about art made you a better person, and put that right into the program and articulate it in the curriculum. And we know you can, we know you will, and we absolutely will support it.
Great.
Thank you.
No, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you very much.
Before we adjourn, I would love to extend an invitation. I'm not sure if TJ has shared this. Have you heard about the guests that we have coming? Did they share that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we have a guest, an international, acclaimed artist from Nepal. Is going to be coming to the United States. She had a scholars grant at Bridgewater University. I had connected with her last year with another project I was involved with outside of school, invited her to the United States, and then she has agreed to come to the high school to do a presentation. So when I was sharing her work with TJ, he said, "Oh, I'd really like to share this with the whole school community." She was very active in the pro-democracy movement in Nepal in the mid-2000s. Her work, well, it's very dreamlike, Chagall-esque, is always dealing with a lot of women's issues, environmental issues, and other socio and political issues. But I think her overriding message, which we just felt was really important to share with the students, is that, we want to empower you as kids to be able to make the change you want to see in this world. She's going to be coming at it through using her art. But I'm hopeful the students will see this presentation. The focus of her presentation at Bridgewater is about women and the struggle of becoming a woman artist in Nepal specifically, and societally. So I think it'll open some students' eyes certainly to some different things. But while there's a very different perspective, I think what's wonderful about her work is there's this universality about what we all experience in terms of, our hopes and fears for the future. And I'm just hoping it'll be a positive message. So I would just love to invite you to come. It'll be on March 23rd, gasp 8:30 in the morning. If you're lucky you're not a freshman, it will be 7:30 in the morning. And we will be inviting some other members, from the community as well. I've been in touch with the Nepalese American Association Brantford, and so we'll be getting some other.
So we put out an invitation through the.
Absolutely.
There's a poster that-
Yep, I've got the invitation is crafted, so I'm thinking they'll go out probably next Wednesday, so you'll have a 2-week.
Very
Great.
much like to go to.
Yeah.
Wendy, do we have any members of the public?
No, we do not.
Great.
Are any other questions? To adjourn at
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
6:33.
Thank